Hello and welcome to part 4 of the Iceberg, where we look at the second half of layer 3. But first off again, I'm an idiot, and last video I didn't consider that I should probably be warning people almost every time I play or show something possibly disturbing. So I'm going to try and be more considerate. With that said, again, this video will be including some topics and stories that may be unsettling, so proceed with caution if you're going to watch it. When I show off the zoom in on the entry, I'll put a little thing at the bottom if I think it could be potentially disturbing visually or narratively to anyone. I also want to be clear that a few entries in the last part have been jokes, which I did because they were meant to be funny and I wanted to. But when I'm done with this iceberg and I compile all the parts into a single video, I'm going to be including a segment at the end where I discuss topics I made jokes of in full, like spontaneous combustion and the chicken whose head went kaput. I realize now that wording it like, oh, I should be warning people every time I play something, might make it seem like I'm being condescending or I'm mocking people who can't take it. No, it's just that I'm very desensitized to a lot of stuff, and there's very few things that genuinely unsettle me to any major degree, but I just haven't really been considering others as much as I probably should have when tackling an iceberg of this sort of subject matter. So, I'm trying my best. But yes, this is part 2 of tier 3 of this fucking iceberg. Let's get to it. Kelly Hopkinsville encounter. Little green men. You know them, you acknowledge them, they're a staple of generic alien bullshittery. 1955 would be the day this concept was really introduced to mainstream media. 8 people would barge into a Kentucky police station in Hopkinsville on August 21st of that year, claiming that they had spent 4 hours fighting one of them. What was them? Little silver men. Apparently, a silver object flew across the sky and crashed, and a group of round-headed and long-armed creatures emerged, with silver glowing bodies and bright yellow eyes. The family at the Sutton farmhouse that encountered them took out guns and began firing at them until they fled, and the Suttons eventually got to the police. But when the police got there, it was all over and nothing was going on. At the time, people sort of brushed it off as a result of too much moonshine and the family being in a drunken hysteria, and when they started to charge people who wanted to come into their home, all goodwill to them was lost and they left. Generally, it's accepted that the drunk family saw an owl, kind of like with Mothman and the Flatwoods Monster, and believed that it was an alien so started to fire on it. Other people think it really did land there and then the aliens ran off. Me? Personally, I believe aliens really did do it because frankly at this point I think aliens did everything. John Jones. Before I actually knew what this was, I intended to make a joke about Martian Manhunter, haha, his name is John Johns, it's similar. But no, this is actually quite a tragic tale about the Nutty Putty Cave. And no, the cave having such a silly name does not lighten the mood at all, at least not once you know the story. West of Utah Lake was a cave known by that name, a hydrothermal cave to be specific that was popular at the time and known for its narrow passageways. On the 24th of November 2009, a man by the name of John Edward Jones went spelunking in the cave with friends and his brother. And when searching for a segment of the cave known as the Birth Canal, mistook a different crevice for it and dived in head first. In doing so, he ended up continuing to go down till he got stuck upside down in an extremely narrow space measuring less than half a meter. His brother Josh attempted to help him, but realized he needed to call emergency services for assistance. When the rescue team arrived, they spent a long time attempting to help John get out with a sophisticated pulley system, but unfortunately, due to how badly John was stuck and the fact that he was upside down, causing his body to struggle pumping blood correctly, he suffered cardiac arrest and was declared dead roughly a day after they'd begun trying to help him. Afterwards, the cave entrance was blown up to seal it, leaving his body in there and making the cave into a former memorial for John. It's a really tragic story, and my heart goes out to the family of John, and to John himself. That being said, I'm not exactly certain what this is doing on the iceberg. I didn't spot a particularly unsolved mystery, or really anything that weird unless you count just the idea of dying in this way weird. I will also say though, that for a long time this sort of thing has been one of my biggest fears, and why I will never attempt to go down something head first, and why I'll never enter a cave. Never. Yeah, I'm a pussy, what of it? Admiral Byrd. For this one, you have to know about the hollow earth theory, which I'm sure you know. It's just that somehow Earth's interior is hollow, and it's its own crazy world with like Atlantis and dinosaurs and aliens and shit, and maybe the occasional King Kong. Admiral Richard Byrd joined what was called Operation High Jump in 1947, an operation to construct an American training and research facility in the South Pole. Not long after, shit got wild according to Byrd. Written in his secret diary, he claimed to have met the Master, leader of the secret underground city Agartha, which was mentioned earlier in the iceberg. The Master apparently said the following.
Our interest rightly begins just after your race exploded the first atomic bombs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. It was that alarming time we sent our flying machines, the Flugurads, to your service world to investigate what your race had done. You see, we have never interfered before in your race's wars and barbarity. But now we must, for you have learned to tamper with a certain power that is not for your man, mainly that of atomic energy. Our emissaries have already delivered messages to the power of your world, and yet they do not heed.
Bird wrote a ton of things about this Agartha place, including the claim that there were tunnels all over the world leading to it, and that the government forced him to keep silent about his claims. At the end of the day, this is all just written in one guy's diary, and if Admiral Byrd wasn't such an accomplished and respected military man of his time, he'd probably just be brushed off as a total joke. But as it is, who knows what he saw? Maybe it was actually aliens, or just some proto-MK Ultra mind hacks. Charles Vance Millar. Charles Vance Millar was a lawyer and financier from Canada, born in 1854, who died in 1926. Now for most people, that would generally be where the story ends, but in this man's case, he wanted to do a little trolling. See, Charles was a massive troll, prankster, and practical joker all his life, but he didn't think that was good enough. He wanted to be one in death too. That's something I can respect. In his will he wrote, 1. He bequeathed his summer house in Jamaica to 3 different lawyers who he knew hated each other on the condition that they lived together in it. 2. He gave a Catholic business to 2 non-Catholic groups. 3. He gave shares of a jockey club to 3 people who hated horse racing for several years. And so on, stuff like that. Though he also did give quite a bit to his close friends and such. The rest, though, went to a contest known as the Great Stork Derby, where the balance of Millar's estate was to be converted into cash 10 years after his death and be given to the woman in Toronto who gave birth to the most children since his passing. Fucking amazing. 4 women had 9 children since then, and I guess shared the reward money between them. I wonder what the reward card said. Congratulations, you done fucked a lot. This is absolutely ridiculous, but I kinda love it. Ed, Ed and Eddie, Luck Be an Ed Tonight / A Room with an Ed. Hey, you know that cartoon Ed, Ed and Eddie? Yeah, I've never seen it, but I know it's about 3 people with those names, and I know it's popular. Apparently, Luck Be an Ed Tonight and A Room with an Ed are 2 supposed half episodes of the 5th season that were not only never released to the public, but possibly never existed at all. You see, we only know them from sneak peek pages on the Edtropolis news page in 2005 and 2006. Supposedly, Luck Be an Ed Tonight was about Ed learning through a horoscope that it was his luckiest day ever, and Eddie trying to use that for his own gain, while A Room with an Ed was about Ed getting kicked out of his room, which sounds far less interesting. But we don't know if they even existed or not, so we cannot really be confirmed, at least not to my knowledge. Mortis.com. Apparently in 1997, a website by the name of Mortis.com existed. From the beginning, what was weird was that the website was just a login page that was extremely hard to get through, hard to hack one's way into. People were able to find the site was connected to various things, including one Thomas Ling, believed to be an alias for someone behind the website, and that some of the inaccessible files on the website were huge, up to 39 gigs. Reportedly, this Thomas Ling said that the website was for his wedding photos, but what fucking wedding photo is fucking 39 gigabytes? This whole thing sparked a huge investigation online on threads across Reddit and 4chan, only fueled by the fact that it seemed like Thomas Ling was trying their hardest to scrub all this from the internet. The website was found to be linked to certain other websites like Cthulhu.net, which was Cthulhu. Using a Usenet search engine called BinSearch, users were able to link emails related to Mortis and found that the website was downloading movies and random other files with whatever names, believed to be derived from a news group called all.binaries.hdtv. Logically, this led to the conclusion that this website was used as a sort of private hosting service, wherein people who were in on it, like family and such, could rip DVDs and post them here for anyone to watch. That does explain the huge file sizes and the amount of video files, and also why the FBI apparently shut the website down. Mystery solved. The only really creepy thing about the website is, I guess, the name? I don't know. Denver Airport. Denver Airport is an airport that is believed to be linked to the Illuminati. Oh, this is going to be a long day. But unironically, the airport does have some weirdness to it. The most notable conspiracy theories are the inclusion of the Freemason symbol on one of the stone slabs, Freemasons being one of the big conspiracy theory groups, the fact that the runaways are shaped like a swastika, or a manji technically, given the angle, and a ton of weird artwork all over the damn place. Also gargoyles, but the big motherfucker of them all is Blucifer, a 30-foot tall, 9,000-pound blue fiberglass horse statue with glowing red eyes, that killed its own creator when a piece of fiberglass fell and severed an artery in his leg. There's also a gargoyle that talks, for some reason. I guess they're playing on the whole conspiracy theory thing. Now, there are a ton of conspiracy theories around what's going on, like there being a military base underneath the airport, or that this is a hub for the reptilian Anunnaki to congregate to discuss how to run our feeble human society, and maybe, somehow, this is linked to aliens. Generally though, it seems more sensible people think this whole thing was just a result of people making this airport having too much time, and also really not thinking their railway design through. Aeschylus. Aeschylus was a Greek tragedian from the 5th century BC, considered the father of tragedy for the plays he wrote back in the day, of which we only have about 7 now. This man was the ancient William Shakespeare. He's also credited as the first dramatist to have written works in a trilogy format, and is believed to have made anywhere from 70 to 90 plays during his life. Aeschylus was born in Eleusis, a small town in Africa just northwest of Athens. As a child, he was apparently visited by the god Dionysus, and commanded to turn his attention to the art of tragedy, spurring him to write his first play at the age of 26. Despite being known today as a playwright, at the time his role in warfare was considered more prominent, having fought alongside his brother against the invading forces of Darius I at the Battle of Marathon. He also would be recruited again with his brother against the forces of Xerxes I in the Battle of Salamis, and would continue fighting in the Battle of Plataea. Notably though, Aeschylus was inducted into the Eleusinian Mysteries. I don't know how I pronounce that. An ancient cult of the goddess Demeter, daughter of Cronus and Rhea and the sister of Zeus, and also one of the many women he fucked, of course. She was the goddess of agriculture and harvest, having dominion over farming and the fruits of it and the fertility of earth, as well as the goddess of health, birth, and marriage. Now this is all interesting, but not really that mysterious. Well, this iceberg actually takes you to the part of the Wikipedia page about his death, which goes like this. In 458 BC, Aeschylus travelled to Sicily and died when an eagle mistook his head for a rock and dropped a tortoise on him from the sky to break the shell open. Yeah, I don't know, I guess the mystery and weird thing is that the reported way he died was weird, and some even say that he heard a prophecy that a falling object would kill him. But that part's legendary, and this whole death might just be fake. But I'm not questioning it, because the man who wrote it has a name as badass as Valerius Maximus. His name means maximum strength, that's awesome! Sam Ballard. Sam Ballard was an Australian rugby player who unfortunately died after his friends dared him to eat a slug one night. After eating it, he found that his legs were in great pain and quite numb. After visiting a doctor, he was found to have had rat lungworm disease, something that could be carried by a slug and infect a human through it. In rare cases, rat lungworm disease can traverse the nervous system of the human body through the intestines and get to the brain, bringing a deadly form of meningitis. Because there's no real way to treat this, Sam and his family just had to wait out and see how severe the case was, and unfortunately Sam's was extremely severe. He suffered a 420-day coma and woke up paralyzed, mute, and unable to eat without a feeding tube. Unfortunately, Sam only lived 8 more years before the disease took his life, having spent 5 of those out of the hospital in a motorized wheelchair. Now, I would tell you that the lesson here is not to eat slugs, but most people should know that. More importantly, I think the lesson here is that if you're really someone's friend, please don't dare them to do things that could be dangerous in any way, because you could pressure them into doing something with severe consequences you may not be thinking about. And that tragically is something that happened here. One of Sam's friends visited him in the hospital and apologized for everything, and Sam, despite not physically being able to respond, was fully capable of understanding and cried during the conversation because he understood everything that was being said. It's a very sad story, and I wish his family the best. Costa Concordia. The Costa Concordia is the most famous modern-day ship disaster of all time. The Concordia was the flagship vessel of the Costa fleet, which sounds way more militaristic than I intended. That began a Mediterranean cruise on January the 11th of 2012. When the captain of the ship had a miscommunication with the officer at the helm of the ship during the cruise, the ship turned in a way that brought it far closer to the shore of Italy than it was intended to be. At 9:44 PM that day, the port side of the Concordia was gashed by underwater rocks, the ship losing power and propulsion as a result. For some reason, despite the continually worsening situation and the crew not even slightly getting the ship's problems under control, nobody attempted to contact anyone for help. Eventually, they finally got around to abandoning the ship, and the great hero of a captain this Concordia had ditched the ship and had arrived at the shore, while 80 passengers had to travel a rope bridge down the side of the Concordia just to get off safely. Tragically, 32 people died during the capsizing of the ship, 5 crewmates and 27 passengers. Oh, and the captain, he claimed that while he was organizing the escape of passengers, that he just accidentally slipped off the side of the ship and Tetris blocked perfectly into place on a lifeboat. That's why he got to the shore, and that's why he didn't go back to take care of his passengers, because he just perfectly slipped onto a lifeboat. He also claimed that the deaths weren't his responsibility because they died during the sinking and not because of the impact. What a scumbag. Door to hell. You might be thinking, what could this mythical door be? This must be the most epic and exciting part of the iceberg yet, and you would be actually kind of correct. This thing is awesome. The Darvaza gas crater is a natural gas cavern collapsed into a cavern in Turkmenistan. In other words, it's a hole in the ground that is always on fire, and it's fucking cool. Today, we don't know exactly how it became ignited, with theories ranging from Soviet geologists setting it on fire to prevent the spread of methane gas, and Actually, that's the only important theory because everyone seems to believe it. What's crazy is that this hole has been burning for 50 years straight. It's just kind of nuts to think about. God, look at this thing. It's mesmerizing at night. The Warrens Occult Museum. We all know the Warrens by now, right? Ever since The Conjuring came out and exploded them back into mainstream culture, at least. The Warrens, Ed and Lorraine, were American paranormal investigators and authors who were associated with many paranormal cases and investigations, from the famous Annabelle doll and Bathsheba Sherman curse, and the Devil Made Me Do It case, where Aunt Cheyenne Johnson claimed to have been possessed by the devil to make him kill his landlord, and then later a movie was made sensationalizing this murder by making Johnson into a victim figure who was generally possessed by a demon. Classy. The Occult Museum, meanwhile, is the rather famous collection of occult artifacts and demonically tainted items that the two collected over the years, including supposedly an actual vampiric coffin, a dead child's tombstone, the Annabelle doll of course, Amityville horror photos, and so on. Presumably, if you walk in there and don't get blessed after leaving, you're probably going to be possessed by a demon of some kind. It's quite an interesting place, but apparently in 2018 the museum was closed due to zoning issues. God, I hate it when demons abuse Samus in Smash. Ship Graveyard. A ship graveyard is just a place where the hulls of scrapped ships are left. Yeah, that's it. I can't find much weird or unsolved about this. There's not even any conspiracy theories. Mattress firm conspiracy theory. Oh, a conspiracy theory! Oh, fuck yes, baby! Let's go! So the conspiracy theory began when people noticed how many Mattress Firm stores there were. Someone asked on Reddit, what conspiracy theories do people buy 100%? And one commenter responded, "A Mattress Firm is some kind of giant money laundering scheme. They are effing everywhere and always empty. I remember seeing 4 mattress firms all on each corner of an intersection once. There is no way there is such a demand for mattresses." Though this wasn't technically the first time anybody noticed, the Chicago Tribune whack back? Why have I written whack back in the script? Way back, had articles and videos about these giant empty Mattress Firm stores right next to each other. However, there's a reasoning behind this. Apparently, Mattress Firm only really had to sell 1 mattress a day to stay in Profit Town. So the reason they often were so empty is that they barely needed to do any work a day to get a profit. If they sell 2 in a single day, they're banking. And there's a ton of them around because greed. Unfortunately, this massive expansion plan didn't end up working for them and they had to close down 700 stores in 2018 and really suffered because of it. Hey, maybe the real conspiracy theory is that aliens clearly were in charge of Mattress Firm, because you'd basically have to be from Alpha Centauri to think this is a good business strategy in the long run. The doll that aged. This fucking iceberg takes you to a creepypasta wiki page. I'm not reading that, and I don't care if what I'm about to tell you is something completely different. This is infinitely more interesting than a creepypasta with 6 comments. A family that didn't want to be named ended up with a doll that they found strangely was aging. Now, this normally isn't too weird. Things age. The device you're watching this on? Yeah, look back at it in 10 years and see if it's the same as you remember it. Watch how well this video fucking ages now. But what they found odd about this doll was that it had aged much the same way that a human would, with wrinkles in all the places a human would have them. We don't know to this day how exactly this happened because dolls tend to age differently to this, mostly developing cracks and the like. It's believed by some that maybe this doll was possessed or connected in some way to a human soul. Maybe it was alive in a way, and that caused it to age like a human. Frankly, that's as good a theory as any. Harold the Doll. Okay, so apparently this is a story of a guy who finds and buys a doll called Harold for $20 from an old man. Sometime after, apparently the old man chased the guy down to explain the history of the doll. Because in your old age, you generally don't tend to think about just telling the important life-saving information you have before the person you need to tell walks off without it. Apparently, the doll was a gift from the old man to his son, and shortly after, the son died. Supposedly, the doll made sounds that could not be burned. And the new owner apparently started having migraines and hearing voices after bringing the doll home. That's the whole story, now it's in a suitcase. Entombed animals. Entombed animals are reportedly animals that have been found encased in solid materials like wood or rocks that are still alive when they're found. Oftentimes frogs and toads. Nothing conclusive has ever come out proving these events to be real. In 1820, a man by the name of William Buckland apparently entombed some frogs for a year and found them dead, but another group he had done this to he found actually alive. But there was a crack in what he entombed them in, which probably allowed for water, insects, and air to get in. So instead, he reburied them without a crack, and found the next year they were fucking dead. Since then, around the 1980s and onward, reports have come out of things like this happening, but they're generally dismissed because it's not possible in it. It's believed just frogs falling off rocks that may have been found are mistaken for having been entombed. Still, I mean, I don't know, maybe this has happened, but generally, I'd assume that if something survives being entombed, it'd be because there's a hole large enough for what they need to survive to enter. David File. How the fuck do I talk about this in a way that YouTube will be okay with? Okay, so this is the story of a 50-year-old man who took a chainsaw and applied it from one side of his neck out the other side. Do you get the picture? David File was a UK man in his 50s whose house he had to leave due to being repossessed, and as a result, the man, after drinking some alcohol and apparently having some manner of mental illness, carefully arranged for a chainsaw to alleviate him of his head. His parents were in a panic because they couldn't contact him, and police busted their way in to find the entire place covered in blood because he used a chainsaw. Jesus Christ. Yeah, let's move on. Gamma ray bursts. A gamma ray burst is a massive fuck-off explosion in space that are the brightest things in the universe that can be seen galaxies away from where they occur. They are extremely rare, only a few happening per galaxy every year, and are caused when a supernova collapses into a black hole. One of these could easily destroy all life on Earth if we were caught in it, though given how bright they are, we'd probably see them coming before they hit us, and we know in advance exactly when we're about to get fucking raptured by God. Larry Dickinson. This man with the excellent handlebar mustache is unfortunately a missing persons case. March 14th, 1998, he talked to a random man in a white pickup truck that came to look at his horses, and he was never seen again. His son left to feed the cows, and when he came back, gone. Well, he was seen one more time after, apparently at a diner talking to another different person. Despite going out to look at stud horses, it was found that Larry never actually went to see them. The investigation on his whereabouts never came up with anything. Apparently at one point, a man in a bar called police saying that Larry was there, and described him in great detail without revealing his own name, but by the time the cops got there, they were both gone. The big thing with this whole case that we really haven't found, aside from obviously what happened to Larry, is who the man is that was talking to Larry. So you could argue in a way there's two missing people here, but for all we know, the guy we don't know is someone who never went missing himself. Nemesis. That's me! I'm Nemesis. Nemesis Bloodreich, who you can like and subscribe to and click the notification. Nemesis. Nemesis refers to the main antagonist of Resident Evil Nemesis. The Nemesis is the flagship of the Decepticon fleet and transformed Nemesis. The Nemesis theory refers to the idea that we have a second sun in the solar system. No, bear with me here, okay? The theory goes that there is a dwarf star in our solar system named Nemesis that will bring about the end of the world. Supposedly, every 26 to 28 million years, Earth suffers a mass extinction event because of Nemesis. First introduced in 1984 by David Raup and Jack Sapkowski, they theorized that the reason for the 26 million year pattern of mass extinction was the presence of this dwarf star, that when reaching Periastron, the point of least distance between two binary stars, basically launches dislodged comets in the Oort cloud all over the place and devastates Earth. However, it has been noted that for Nemesis to have a 26 million year orbital period, it would have to be 1.5 light years away from the Sun, far enough that it'd be very easily by now have been dislodged from its orbit by the pull of other things in the galaxy. And obviously, we would have found it by now. It's so much closer theoretically to our star than any other star in the universe, so we would have seen it by now. So unsurprisingly, the concept of another star existing in our solar system is pretty much impossible. But in fairness, it is one of those things you can't not confirm. Like, you can't not confirm that I have a 7-foot tall purple dinosaur in my backyard right now. Toynbee tile. Discovered in Philadelphia and then found all over the fucking place, the Toynbee tiles are linoleum and asphalt crack sealant mosaics, usually the size of license plates. The hundreds of tiles tend to have the same sort of message written on them. Toynbee idea in movie 2001 resurrect dead on planet Jupiter! Since the 1980s, we have been finding these with no idea really where they come from, with some coming alongside the above message with political messages on conspiracy theories between the press, US government, and USSR. Now, one of the questions is obviously what the fuck are these even about, and there are some subjects that are believed to be possibly what these tiles are referring to. The first is that it's related to this passage from Arnold Toynbee's book, Experience. Human nature presents human minds with a puzzle which they have not yet solved and may never succeed in solving, for all that we can tell. The dichotomy of a human being into soul and body is not a datum of experience. No one has ever been or ever met a living human soul without a body. Someone who accepts, as I myself do, taking it on trust, the present-day scientific account of the universe may find it impossible to believe that a living creature once dead can come back to life again. But if he did entertain this belief, he would be thinking more scientifically if he thought in the Christian terms of a psychosomatic resurrection than if he thought in the shamanistic terms of a disembodied spirit. The second theory is that it's based on Ray Bradbury's short story, The Toynbee Convector. The third is that it's based on Arthur C. Clarke's short story Jupiter 5, where humanity is taken to Jupiter by a ship called the Arnold Toynbee. Another thing we don't know is who created these tiles. In 1983, a man named James Marasco contacted talk shows talking about his theory of colonizing Jupiter with the corpses of mankind. He said that this was based on books by historian Arnold Toynbee, and talked about 2001: A Space Odyssey as well. However, we don't know who this is. He referred to having founded an association, but later it was determined the tiles were all made by a single person. When the only James Marasco in the area he claimed to be from was contacted in 2003, the person who contacted him was told by his wife that James had actually died years prior and didn't know anything about the tiles. In 2001 though, the documentary Resurrect Dead, The Mystery of the Toynbee Tiles came out, where Justin Dewar said that he thought the person who did this was the Philadelphian recluse Severino Sevi Werner, who used the name James Marasco as an alias, due to there being tiles surrounding Werner's residence that Justin believed were tests, and he also believed that as Werner drove around without a passenger seat, he dropped the tiles out a hole in his car. As this time, we don't really know still, but it's an interesting mystery. Homicidal sleepwalking. No surprise, this is the concept of killing someone while sleepwalking. There have been tons of cases where people have tried to plead guilty to killing someone, but only did it because they were asleep while they did it and they weren't aware. Naturally, people are skeptical. Yeah. My red is not your red. This is the very simple concept that people see colors differently without knowing it. For instance, what you see here is what I call red, and you call red, but maybe what you see looks like this, and will be what I would call yellow, and maybe what I'm seeing is what you call yellow. But we both refer to them as red because regardless of what we actually see, we've both been taught that that thing we see is red. Simple, you couldn't really prove or disprove it. Hanging coffins. Hanging coffins are coffins placed on the side of cliffs, a practice seen in China, India, and the Philippines. In China, it's an ancient form of burial where most of the people who practiced it are now long extinct. It was believed to have been done to prevent others from disturbing the dead, at least in China. In the Philippines, however, hanging coffins are a rare funerary practice reserved only for the most important and distinguished leaders of communities, with the height at which coffins are placed reflecting their status. In India, it's much the same, reserved for the most important people. Zone of Death, Yellowstone. The Zone of Death is a place that due to a legal loophole you can get away with murder in. Located in a section of Idaho, due to some legal nonsense, there's no way to legally prosecute crimes committed in this park. Fun! Godly Recon. Godly Recon is interesting. Supposedly, they are a YouTube channel that vanished. July 8th, Nation Squid uploaded a video on 10 creepy things on the internet. Now removed from that video was originally a section about a channel called Godly Recon, a vlogging channel run by 23-year-old Caroline, who began making videos about her being stalked. She stopped uploading supposedly after this video, which I should warn you, might disturb some people. Allegedly, 6 months after it was uploaded, it went viral, and then YouTube blasted the channel down, and Caroline's never been found. However, you'll find that nobody at all knew about Godly Recon before Nation Squid's video. Scare Theater, who you probably know if you're watching this video, contacted Nation Squid and got really nothing confirming Godly Recon's existence. As of now, we don't know if Godly Recon existed, but it's very much agreed upon that Nation Squid was making a hoax. But he claims to have not. Maybe he just remembered it wrong? I don't know. Seems to me this was a hoax that went a bit out of hand. Skunk Ape. The skunk ape is a cryptid that essentially is what happens when you take Bigfoot but make him stinky. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, Dade County, Florida was flooded with reportings of something, and for some reason we're assuming that this something is the skunk ape. Because in autumn of 2000, a woman captured 2 photos of an escaped orangutan and sent them to the police of Sarasota County. After releasing these photos to the public, people immediately fucking decided, no, that's the skunk ape. We have now decided that there is a skunk ape, which is like Bigfoot, but it stinks really fucking bad. There is also this legendary 2000 skunk ape footage by Dave Shelley, where... oh shit. That's a nice fursuit, bro. No, I'm just kidding. That fursuit looks like trash, and this whole thing looks like it was filmed on a rotary phone. Now, of course, the reasonable explanation is that it's just a black bear. Same with most Bigfoot sightings. When they stand on their hind legs, they look like a big bipedal hairy man. But, given that the skunk ape is from Florida, it's probably just Florida man. Almas. Almas? Almas refers to a folklorish entity from Central Asia found in Turkish and Mongolian text. Russian geographer Nikolai Jesus Christ was quoted as saying, "We were told it had a flat face like that of a human being, and that it often walked on 2 legs, that its body was covered with a thick black fur, and its feet armed with enormous claws, that its strength was terrible, and that only were hunters afraid of attacking it, but the inhabitants removed their habitations from those parts of the country where it visited." According to Cryptid Wiki, so basically according to some nobody internet with the credibility for 4chan posts, but admittedly also here and there online, there was an 1800s Almas who was domesticated called Zana. She was caged, mistreated, turned into essentially a slave, non-consensually bedded, and so on. Lovely stuff. Supposedly she had 6 children with unknown fathers too. Now, I for some reason can't find any concrete agreement on if Xana actually existed or not. For some reason, it really just depends on the source if Xana is a supposed existing being, or someone whose existence is so concrete we have her genome. But generally it's accepted that if Xana was real, she would have been a woman who suffered from hypertrichosis, a condition where one's entire body would be covered in hair. That would explain a lot, namely her appearance and the fact that she was able to have children with people, because, if she wasn't human, that would kind of be difficult to accomplish. A lot of the details about her size and ability to speak and origins could have easily been bullshitted by the people of the time, because she was exploited for money and such. Come here, look at the Almas we captured. It's pretty likely she was just a person with a condition. But some do think she was an Almas. Nowadays, it's considered a cryptid, more or less a Central Asian equivalent to Bigfoot, Orang Pendek. Bigfoot in Sumatra, that's basically what the Orang Pendek is. Allegedly sighted since 100 years ago and documented, Orang Pendek is supposedly a very short, hairy ape creature. According to the Suku Anak Dalam people, the Orang Pendek has been a part of their world for centuries. A similar folklorish entity, the Hantu Pendek, exists within the world of the Orang Rimba people, but it is seen as more of a supernatural entity. Surprisingly, this entity can be considered as a cryptid a la Bigfoot as well. Hibagon. Unlike the Almas and Orang Pendek, Hibagon is a Bigfoot equivalent in Japan who does not originate in ancient folklore. Rather, in the 1970s, there have been sightings around Mount Hiba of what is described to basically be a gorilla. It's probably just sightings of escaped gorillas from zoos, I'd imagine. Now here's a supposed photo of a Hibagon taking a leak. False vacuum decay. False vacuum decay is a hypothetical metastable vacuum, that meaning it's relatively stable but not as stable as it can be. Now the difference between a false and true vacuum is that a true vacuum has quantum fields and is at the most stable it can be because it's at the global minimum amount of energy. A false vacuum is not that. There's a lot of generally to normal people nonsense terms I could throw out, but the big implication with all this is that if the universe is in a state of false vacuum and not true vacuum as we think, then there could potentially come a point where fundamental forces just stop, or even a point where the universe would suffer a gravitational collapse. In other words, they're all fucked. Antimatter. Antimatter is basically matter, but made of the antiparticles of the corresponding matter. So if your antimatter was made of antiparticles corresponding to a banana, it would have the same amount of antiparticles as the banana has regular particles. Something like that. Antimatter tends to occur in cosmic ray collisions and some forms of radioactive decay, and has been observed in particle-accelerated collisions. Theoretically, a particle and its corresponding antiparticle would have the same mass but opposing electrical charges, and if they were to make contact, both would be annihilated. The biggest question with antimatter is that there's a lot of evidence to suggest that the universe is not formed of equal amounts of matter and antimatter, but rather it's mostly matter. This cosmic imbalance formed from what's known as baryogenesis is one of the biggest unsolved mysteries of the universe. Cursed Mirror of Myrtle's Plantation. In 1794, Whiskey Rebellion runner David Bradford settled down in Louisiana and built the plantation where he lived with his family after he was pardoned for his part in the Whiskey Rebellion. He would die the same year as his daughter was married, and sometime after in 1834, Ruffin Gray Sterling would buy the land and name it Myrtle's. From here on, the owners of the plantation would suffer tragic deaths, creating horror stories of the plantation starting from 1950s. The Cursed Mirror specifically refers to a large frame mirror that supposedly contains the souls of everyone who died in the plantation, and has apparently been observed with multiple handprints on the glass despite being thoroughly cleaned. Some would assume that either ghosts of the dead or maybe aliens are causing these handprints. I just think there's some dirty bastards going around touching it when nobody's looking. The actual spooky part of the plantation, though, is the supposed spirit of a ghost girl who was once a slave named Chloe. She was allegedly killed by other slaves for attempting to poison Woodroof, the man who married David Bradford's daughter. She's supposedly seen walking the halls of the plantation. Another spooky happening involves an uncleanable spot on the floor where 3 Union soldiers were gunned down. Ooh, such a spooky plantation. I mean, yeah, I'm never gonna go into it, but that's beside the point, isn't it? Rain of animals. The idea of animals raining from the sky is as old as storytelling, seen in mythology, religion, and folklore. This seems like a ridiculous concept, but alas, it's just a thing that has happened. Generally, it's accepted to be caused by the likes of seriously strong winds throwing small animals across the air, water spouts carrying things from the water onto land and throwing them all over, and storms killing birds in the air while they're flying through them. It's really one of those things that seems pretty reasonable when you hear how it could happen, but when you're there and it's happening around you, you'll be freaking the fuck out. Travis Walton abduction. Travis Walton is an American forestry worker who claimed that on the 5th of November 1975, he was abducted by aliens while working in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest near Arizona. Walton was reported missing for 5 days and 6 hours, with scent dogs and helicopters unable to find him until he claims to have woken up just around the side of the road near Heber, Arizona. Allegedly, he and 6 of his co-workers were riding in a truck when a saucer-shaped object, of fucking course it is a saucer-shaped object, appeared 110 feet above them and made a high-pitched buzz. Walton, an average forestry worker but a brilliant scientist, stepped out and approached the vessel, where a beam of light knocked him the fuck out and made his mates drive off. Walton claims that he woke up on an operating table, with 3 bold and short creatures around him, and also some humans with helmets who knocked him out again. I couldn't find much else about this, and I have a few questions generally, like, what happened to the 6 people he was riding with? Like, surely they would have been mentioned somewhere more than as a side note if they witnessed the UFO too, right? I mean, I'd imagine so, but all I can find is a Wikipedia page and a bunch of links to his book that I'm not buying for this. Anyway, if what Walton is saying is true, then okay. I guess the most interesting thing about this is that the sniffer dogs and helicopters couldn't find him, but then people go missing all the time on purpose and avoid things like that too, so it's really not that crazy to imagine. It's likely he's lying, and frankly I just want to say, mate, you could have come up with a far more interesting spaceship and more interesting aliens than this the most cliche thing possible, bruv. But he made a profit out of this whole thing, so good job on that. Westall UFO. The Westall UFO was a reported UFO sighting in Melbourne, Australia on April 6, 1966. Honestly, one of the more interesting sightings, at roughly 11 PM, students and a teacher at Westall High School claimed to have witnessed a silvery grey flying disc about twice the size of a family car and with a purple hue. It descended, flew over the school, and disappeared behind some trees. Roughly 20 minutes later, it flew up and pissed off to the northwest, with some claiming that it was chased by 5 other aircraft. Now the big thing with this story is that it has a bunch of kids that claim to have seen this too, and if you know anything about kids, you know that they're stupid, and would have trouble sticking to a story, seeming believable and actually convincing people. The kids give a lot of credibility to this story, and I do think this actually happened. However, the general explanation that I do agree with is that this was a balloon and not a saucer. Either a weather balloon as reported in The Age, or a one-way high-altitude balloon used to monitor radiation, as suggested by Keith Basterfield, which fits much better with the events. There were apparently documents that did confirm a balloon at this time confirmed to look very similar to the claimed aircraft the students saw was blown off course and could have easily landed in that general area. And then the balloon was dragged back with some aircraft to where it originated, explaining the other aircraft seen. This is still one of the more interesting UFO sighting cases in my opinion. The Delhi Purple Sapphire. This refers to a supposedly cursed purple amethyst, found by curator Peter Tandy with a note under it that told of tragedy and curses. In 1857, Colonel W. Ferrer supposedly took what he thought to be a purple sapphire from a Hindu temple devoted to Indra back home, and that brought tragedy to himself and his family. And when he gave the gem to a friend, one of their family members just undid their own mortal coil. This sort of curse continued apparently until 1890, where an apparently skeptical scientist scholar by the name of Edward Heron Allen got the stone, and then immediately blamed his misfortunes on it. He neutralized it with rings and scarabs of silver until 1902, where it started playing up again, and then he yeeted the fucker into a river. And someone found it and gave it back. Edward kept it until his death, where he instructed nobody to open the box containing the gem, and it remained closed until 1972. Nowadays, the cursed amethyst sits at a museum, where it still brings misfortune to others. Obviously, is the amethyst actually cursed, or was it made up by Edward Heron Allen for whatever reason? Maybe it's just that people tend to have misfortunes generally in life, and when they're given something that is supposed to bring misfortune, they're made more aware of the misfortunes happening and attributed to the amethyst in a sort of not quite self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't know. Koh-i-Noor diamond. This is a massive fucking diamond! Weighing 105 carats, it is one of the crown jewels of the United Kingdom, and sits in the crown of Queen Elizabeth. The Koh-i-Noor's origin is a thing of legend, with some legends saying it was mined in the Middle Ages, or that it was originated in the eye of a statue of Hindu goddess Bhadrakali. It has been disputed where it actually originates, and as a result, it's disputed who actually owns it. India, since 1947 and their independence was granted, have asked for the Koh-i-Noor to be returned to them. Pakistan, in 1976, claimed that they should have it, and Afghanistan as well have claimed to own it. But Britain being Britain just said no and kept it. Rebecca Corium. Rebecca Corium is another case of a person who disappeared while on a cruise ship, which is just as a concept very unsettling. In 2011, on March 22nd, ship employee Rebecca Corium vanished on the Disney Wonder cruise ship. Last seen on CCTV cameras at 5:45 AM while the ship was en route to Puerto Vallarta. In the footage, she was seen wearing men's clothing, talking on the internal phone line, and acting distressed. After that, she was never seen again, and failed to report for her 9 AM shift. Disney staff searched the ship but couldn't find her, and later the US Coast Guard and Mexican Navy couldn't find any trace of her in the surrounding ocean, where she may have ended up if she had somehow left the ship. While this is all bad enough, some people have claimed that there's more going on with this case than it seems. Mike Corium, Rebecca's father, claims that Disney disregarded the standard procedures and didn't turn the ship around to look for her. He also claimed that the Navy and Coast Guards were given the wrong coordinates and searched the wrong part of the sea. Now, under the flags of convenience system, jurisdiction over the case belonged to the country of the ship's registration, the Bahamas. The Bahamas sent out one private detective, who between the 2,950 combined people on the ship, that being 950 crewmates and roughly 2,000 passengers, interviewed a total of 6 of them. Disney eventually flew Rebecca's parents out to see the detective, where they were told that it was likely that Rebecca was swept off the ship by a wave. However, the parents claimed that a lot of what happened was very staged and suspicious, and unsatisfied with the explanation given by Disney, who closed the case soon after, they hired a private detective of their own who found some disturbing things that Disney hadn't addressed. First off, the weather at the time Disney claimed Rebecca was swept by a wave was incongruent with the weather necessary for such a wave to have occurred. Additionally, the CCTV footage shown was actually cropped to hide that the footage was not of Deck 5 as Disney claimed. They claimed that the footage was of Deck 5 where Rebecca was swept off, but actually, the footage was of Deck 1. Finally, Disney had given the family a sandal from Deck 5 that they claimed was Rebecca's as proof, but it was determined that it actually belonged to someone else entirely. Sometime after that, an investigative journalist of The Guardian actually boarded one of these cruisers and talked to the crew, where they claimed that the call Rebecca had made was actually taped, and they were told not to tell the journalist they didn't know anything. There was also supposed evidence of a possible sexual assault struggle in the form of torn shorts on Rebecca's cabin, and Rebecca's password on Facebook had mysteriously changed, and there was activity in her bank account after she vanished. The entire case is beyond creepy and very unsettling, and I really feel for the family of Rebecca, not just because they lost their daughter, but also because the investigation seems to have been so heavily botched and haphazardly swept under the rug. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think there's more to this case than what Disney say, or do you think people are just looking for more conspiracy than there actually is? Gustave. Gustave refers to a big fucking Nile crocodile that is rumored to have killed over 300 people. While that number is likely heavily inflated, he has gained a legendary status as a man-eating crocodile. While he has never been captured and thus information on him is scarce, it's believed that he could be up to 5.5 meters long and weigh 910 kilograms, roughly the size of a big saltwater crocodile. He's estimated to be around 60 years old and is known for 3 bullet wounds and 4 unknown scars over his body. Most of what is known of Gustave is from the Capturing the Killer Croc documentary, which did in fact not capture the killer croc, but it was reported in 2019 that he had been killed, with no evidence whatsoever, so who knows. The Michigan Triangle. A triangular area in the United States, since 1891 is believed to be a site of many disappearances, and aliens of course. Supposed disappearances have spanned from 1891 to 2013, with people from anywhere between 13 to 70 years old vanishing within the area. Yeah, that's about it. The Bennington Triangle. A loosely defined area around the ghost town of Glastonbury, beginning from 1945, a ton of people have reportedly gone missing in this area, including the infamous case of 18-year-old Paula Walton, who couldn't be found even with 1,000 people on the search. Another strange case was a man named James E. Tedford, who apparently vanished while he was driving his truck. Theories as to how these people vanished include a serial killer, which is hard to buy given how long ago this all started, attacks from lynxes and cougars, and of course aliens and supernatural entities. Lewis Hamilton's 2007 title choke. This refers to the conspiracy around when McLaren supposedly threw away the 2007 title in Formula 1. In the penultimate race of the series, Hamilton just needed to win and he would have won the title regardless of how he would do in the final race. However, near the end, he vanished off the track apparently, despite being at the front, and when he showed back up, his tyres weren't changed and weren't ready for the conditions of the track. Unnecessary risks led to Hamilton failing to win the race, and the following race, it's believed by conspiracy theorists that a saboteur was sent in to prevent McLaren from winning. Using a directed energy weapon, they fired an electromagnetic pulse at the gearbox of Hamilton's car, causing it to... What? Anyway, when Hamilton went to his pit stop, a bunch of mistakes happened that led to Hamilton not finishing in the position he needed to win the series. It's a really strange conspiracy, but I think the big thing is that when Hamilton was asked years later about what happened, he reportedly said that he didn't know at the time, but he does now, and he can't talk about it. That's probably what really got the conspiracy theorists going. I myself just don't know what to think. Severed feet mystery / the Salish sea feet. Since the 20th of August 2007, 20 detached human feet have washed up and been discovered on the coast of the Salish Sea in British Columbia and Washington. Generally, feet don't tend to do that, and the mystery of how these feet came to be severed tends to still go around, though authorities ruled out foul play and seem to have come to the conclusion that all of these cases were people who died either by accident or by self-reaper voyage. It's reasoned that these feet washed up because the decay process humans undergo makes the ankle joint especially weak and prone to detaching from the body, meaning the lighter and smaller foot could pop off and float to shore while the heavier body is too massive for those currents to bring over. Seems reasonable, but fuck, I'd hate to be walking down the beach one day and just come across a foot lying in the sand. The Wailing House, Wales. One of my best friends lives in Wales. In Carmarthenshire, Wales, couple Alan and Christine Tate moved into a house and had no problems for 11 years. Until one day, where sounds would seem to come out of nowhere. Flushing sounds, muffled noises, machinery, just random noises that neither of the Tates seemed to know the origins of. The only thing they found was that the noises seemed to originate from the basement. Surprisingly, the Tates didn't actually think the noises were supernatural in nature. They thought there was something going on below their house that was causing these sounds they just didn't know about. Which is more plausible, but we don't know for sure what's causing the noises. The Great Dying. The Great Dying refers to the Permian-Triassic extinction event that occurred between the Paleozoic and Mesozoic eras 251.9 million years ago. This was the most severe mass extinction in Earth's history, with 95% of all living beings across the planet being wiped out. Despite the massive impact though, we don't know for sure what caused the extinction. Because it was so long ago, there wasn't really anyone there watching it go down. Theories include volcanic activity, methane cloud strays being exposed to the air, acidification of the ocean, widespread oxygen deprivation, microbes, aridification, and any mixture of these possible causes. I think probably a combination of some of these is probably the most likely. It's just hard to swallow that a single cause would bring such a huge reduction in life, I know people are going to bring out the meteor that killed the dinosaurs, but not only was that not even close to the Great Dying, there was multiple things going on there too. Cambrian Explosion. On the other side of ancient prehistoric events of major importance, the Cambrian Explosion was the sudden burst of animal life and biodiversity 538.8 million years ago. Again, we don't really know what caused it, but I still think a combination of causes is the most plausible explanation of how this happened, with those being increase in oxygen levels, formation of the ozone layer, increase in calcium, evolutionary developmentation of organisms, evolution of eyes, beginning of a biological arms race between predators and their prey prompting evolutionary adaptation, or living entities just generally reached the threshold of complexity where they could start evolving in such varied ways. Or aliens. Coronal heating. Coronal heating refers to the weird way in which the sun is temperatured. You know how if you're closer to a fire, you'll feel warmer, and if you're further away, you feel colder? Well, for some reason, the Columbia, and yes, I'm saying that word wrong on purpose to avoid YouTube, the Columbia of the sun is actually hotter than the surface by up to 500 times. For the area above the surface of the sun to be hotter than what produces the heat that makes it warm is incredibly bizarre. But there are theories, like that the plasma of the sun rises up in waves that crash, and the collision produces a lot of energy, or that little mini flares are going off in that area. Another question is if the case of coronal heating is in small bomb-like blips in areas, or universally around the area, but it can't really be determined due to the nature of the Columbia, which makes it so that if there was a little bomb-like blip, the heat would spread across so fast we wouldn't even really notice. Coral Castle. Coral Castle refers to an oolite limestone structure made by Edward Leedskalnin, fuck that name, formed of several ton stones sculpted into various shapes, including simple walls and shapes, as well as more complex sundials and water fountains. The mystery is how this structure was created, as the legend told by the very location itself to tourists is that 26-year-old Edward was rejected by his 16-year-old fiancée. Good? And spent 28 years single-handedly constructing Coral Castle using a perpetual motion holder, whatever the fuck that is. He also moved it several times with, I guess, his magic mind powers. We obviously don't know exactly how it came to be, but I guess the guy making it himself is as good enough explanation as any. Lawrence Spierer. On June 3rd, 2011, the Indiana University sophomore Lawrence Spierer, I actually don't know how to say that, would go missing after a night out with her friends at the bar and never be seen again. At the end of the semester, 20-year-old Laura, who was majoring in textiles, went out with her friends for a drink, then left to go home and simply vanished. While captured on campus by surveillance footage, that's all we know what happened that day. Over 10 years later, police still haven't been able to find her. Of course, my description didn't truly capture all that happened. Apparently, Lauren's boyfriend was at his apartment, and she said that she was going to go to sleep, when instead she went off to party. She got pissed drinking with her friend Jason Rosenbaum, and who would later go on to be the last person to see Lauren at all, when she later appeared at his apartment and refused when he offered to just let her sleep on his couch that night, because she wanted to party more, and then she left. Now, Lauren's parents believe that her friends know more than what they told the police, and everyone involved are considered persons of interest, if not fully suspects, with her boyfriend especially having no alibi for the time span in which Lauren vanished. But they were all quite cooperative, even if their parents didn't allow them to take polygraph tests, though Lauren's boyfriend and Jason claimed that they did independent tests that they passed. Theories are generally either that she was attacked by someone and murdered, kidnapped off the street, or overdosed and vanished somewhere nobody could find her. Ghost rockets. Now, ghost rockets sound awesome, but actually it was just a few UFOs seen mostly in Sweden in 1946, from February 26th of that year to August 11th, with over 2,000 having been reported. Now, obviously the origins of these sightings are unknown, but there are theories. Some suggest that these were the result of meteor showers, but the timelines of reports don't exactly line up perfectly with the major meteor shower events. But the more agreed upon ones are that these were missile tests by the Soviets at the time. But in those times this was disputed, as no rocket fragments were found, sometimes they went horizontally, and they moved too slowly and left no exhaust trails, and sometimes they even moved in formations. A lot of searches went on. Some determined that the remains of the ghost rockets were meteorite fragments, and some claimed to find full rockets in the crash points that exploded. Generally it seems though that people accept the missile theory, that or they're believed to be aliens. Westall lights. The Westall lights are unidentified lights observed in a 12-kilometer radius in the Westall Valley of Norway. Since the 1930s, lights have appeared at either day or night floating around and above the valley. Often white, yellow or red, they can either move around fast or slow, hover in place, and can last from seconds to hours long. Even nowadays there are still apparently some sightings, roughly 10 to 20 a year. Despite these still going on and us researching the lights, we don't know what exactly causes them and lack any really strong hypotheses. And the hypotheses we do have are all very technical things I doubt most of you would understand, like Coulomb crystal clusters in plasma produced by alpha particles during radon decay, or piezoelectricity. I don't get it either. The Kecksburg incident. Another UFO sighting, this one occurred on December 9th, 1965, when a fireball was seen across 6 states in the US crossing the sky. Given the amount of unrelated people across those states, and even a portion of Canada, who reported the same thing at the same time, it's considered highly unlikely, if not borderline impossible, that this was a hoax. Those people did see something burning up in the sky. Of course, you might be thinking it's very easy to explain this away as something other than aliens, including a meteor, a falling satellite, and a weather balloon. However, some others dispute this claim and believe that it is aliens because there's a cover-up. One man claimed that his attempt to make a documentary was stopped by the military, who clearly didn't do a good job because the documentary came out anyway. Another thing is that NASA apparently lost their documentation of the incident as well. Suspicious, But generally today, any number of explanations are accepted, more or less agreeing that whatever fell was a man-made object of some kind, be it a probe or a satellite. This egg thing though, by the way, this is just a prop made for Unsolved Mysteries to represent what fell. We never actually found what it was that crashed. If it crashed at all, it could have just burnt up. Mafia lights. The Mafia ghost lights are lights seen across Route 67 of Mafia, Texas, that flicker about. These lights are very mysterious and often attributed to ghosts and aliens, sometimes even will-o-wisps. However, scientifically it has been determined that most, if not all of these ghost lights are atmospheric reflections of car lights. So yeah, cool. Zanfretta UFO incident. The final entry of this layer, the Zanfretta UFO incident. Italian night watchman Pier Fortunato Zanfretta claimed that he was abducted 11 times between 1978 and 1891, beginning on December 7th, 1978, where he was examining Casa Nostra when suddenly a red oval object 10 meters in diameter was spotted in the backyard. He called his supervisor, who reported hearing him screaming. Zanfretta ran into 3-meter-tall molted-skin creatures with triangular eyes and clawed feet. The last thing his supervisor heard Zanfretta saying was, "No, they are not men." Zanfretta was later found in a state of shock, and when hypnotized was quoted as saying, "They are green, with triangular yellow eyes, with big thorns. They have green flesh, and skin is full of wrinkles as if they were old. Their mouths look like they're made of iron. They have red veins on their heads,
pointed ears and arms with fingernails. With round things, they come from the third galaxy.
The Carabinieri launched an investigation and found 52 witnesses claimed to see the UFO, and where Zanfletta claimed it had landed was a horseshoe-shaped impression on the ground. And that's where the story ends. I couldn't find much more information, but it's compelling enough with what it is. Personally, if this is fake, I applaud the creativity and the ship and creatures. It's more compelling than a lot of these. And, hey, do you think it's real? Do you think it's fake? You tell me down below. Guy's probably full of shit, but at least it is interesting. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know I mispronounced a few things. Well, it's not even that I mispronounced it, it's that I wrote them wrong in the script. So I pronounced what I wrote correctly, I just wrote the wrong fucking thing. So I'm really sorry about that. I didn't really want to waste time going to re-record those whole segments, like, way after, when I just wanted to get this video out. I didn't want people waiting as long as they did for part 3. I don't know at the time of uploading this whether or not I succeeded in getting out sooner than part 3 came out. You might have to wait a bit before part 5. During the course of making this, the Iceberg actually was updated. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to stick with the old version of the Iceberg, if I can, like, still find the image that I used, and then put all the stuff that comes out, because, like, with how quickly the Iceberg updated, I might end up, like, before I finish, it might even update a few more times, so anything added to it after the fact will be added in with the bonus segment when I compile everything together, along with my corrections, and stuff. I might even scrap, like, the additional things I intended to put on there, because they might just end up being in the updates. So, yeah, I'll be saving that for, like, the supercut. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. You can tell me what you thought in the comments. I hope I remembered to put the disturbing warnings when I should have. Yeah. I hope that helped people with who wanted to watch the video but couldn't handle some of the more, like, intense stuff. Though there wasn't as much of it this time. There was no Mr. Cruel or anything. But with the next 3 layers, I'm pretty sure there will be. So yeah, thank you to all my patrons who are currently scrolling down on screen. If you want, you can support me on Patreon, link in the description. We will get access to my Patreon-only Discord, as well as bloopers when I eventually put them out, which will be eventually, and exclusive videos, of which there are a few that I intend to put on there once I finish with some bigger projects. As for now, the big bonus that people get is that they make me get to say stupid, dumb shit, and stuff like that. You started me with Sonic Rin sound effect. How am I supposed to do? Ding! I don't know what the hell to do. This is definitely a reference that I don't get. So for this and the next one, you will have to listen to Shao Kahn saying it.
Task failed. Successfully. You now earn confusion. This skill gives the user temporary stupidity. How dare you not try my cooking? I, a master baker.
Baba Booey. One does not simply call Sylvanus a well-written character.
I am hopelessly confused.
What's wrong with diapers, Wiz? They're comfy, easy to wear, and I can drink as much beer as I want without stomach for a bathroom break.
I felt disgusting saying that. No human language can describe the disappointment I'm feeling right now. I'm the Bloodlike, and I can do whatever the fuck I want. Crikey! This has to be Fortnite related. I can't even make, like, loud noises right now. Although I do plan to enjoy it. Would someone see what that is? Whoa, whoa. Impossible! I watched you die! I got over it. You... So yeah, that was that. I regret this. Not the video though, as long as you guys enjoyed. I hope you did. I'm probably... Yeah, there'll probably be some update about my life situation coming at some point that might hamper the way of videos, but for now, that might be on hold. That might not be a problem, but you never know. It might actually be announced by the time this video comes out, actually, now I'm thinking about it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Have a good one, all of you, and I'll see you next video.